Hey everyone, it's Andrew Schiffman.
Harry Turcott here. We both worked at MTV in the music and talent department in the late 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah, it was a time where music videos, TRL, The Jersey Shore, and the Osbournes ruled the airwaves.
Yes, Andrew, those are some great years. So tune in every week as we catch up with old MTV coworkers, record label execs, VJs, and artists.
I can't wait, Perry. We'll give you insights into meeting superstars before they were superstars and some juicy secrets from that golden age of MTV.
So grab your headphones and get ready to relive the era of music television and the people who shaped a generation.
Hey everyone, welcome back. Happy Thursday and welcome back to the Music Lounge. Perry, how are you today?
I'm fine, Andrew. How are you doing today?
Good. We could just put in the recording because that's the same.
I know,
line
it's the
every
same
week.
thing we say every week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You had a good week?
I had a very good week, thank
Yeah.
you. Yeah,
Right.
I'm excited that we get to do this again.
Yeah.
I'm very excited for our guest today is the former SVP of Visual Marketing at the Capitol Music Group and currently has her own media company, Crown Jewel Entertainment. Please welcome Diane Mayer to the show.
Welcome, Diane.
Hello. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much for having me.
You're absolutely welcome. Let's jump right into this.
Let's do it.
You know, you were at Capitol, and that is, you know, a very iconic American brand, and they're probably one of the things they're most known for is that they were the label for the Beatles. So it was like a British band on a American brand. So what was it like when you got a job at Capitol, and what was it like stepping into the music history of that company?
It was really exciting. I mean, I worked in New York, so we were the satellite office, and eventually I was going out to the tower every 6 weeks or something like that. But that building really it grabs you. It really does. Like for some reason, it's true what they say. You feel the history of the building. You go downstairs into the recording studios. I mean, Frank Sinatra built those, so that was like his home. He had his own bathroom in one of the studios, so that's always like a fun thing. Or like that's Frank's bathroom. But it's just a beautiful, beautiful studio down there. I mean, it's completely remarkable. It's no wonder people want to record there just because of the sound quality and the history. And the best part of the building is that, I mean, obviously it's a circle, no pun intended. It takes a few rounds to get your bearings when you're there because you can just be running around to meetings. And I'm looking for people's offices. I'm looking for the conference room. And I'm like, wasn't I just here? And then when you have to go to another office, you're like, wait a minute, I could have gone around the other way because it was literally right there. So like, but instead we take the long way around. But it's quite something. It really is, and it's a very
It's an
special
iconic
place.
landmark. There's
It's absolutely,
movies
yeah.
it's in movies. It's every LA shot. It's there.
It's in
So
every external shot. Like if you want to establish that you're in Los Angeles,
that and
that's
Hollywood
what you
sign.
do. Yeah, and the Hollywood sign.
Yeah. You talk about the studio. The very first time I was in the building, which was seeing some of the digital folks at Capitol, they took me down to see the studio. They're like, you have to see this. This is just like the most iconic place to see, and it was amazing. And the other interesting part about the circle was there's no way to orient yourself like north, south, east, west because it's not square, so you can't figure out who is where in relation to somebody. Yeah, absolutely.
Whilst you were there, especially in my years of working at MTV, the label had such a diverse group of artists from like the Beastie Boys, Radiohead, Coldplay, Kylie Minogue, Katy Perry, to name a few. So a lot of those, maybe the power of the label and the team and yourself, you really brought those artists to an iconic global levels. Talking about some of those, one personal to me, what was it like working with Radiohead, Kid A album? I know they did the $2 bill at MTV. I don't know if you were involved in those, but
yes,
what was it like working with that artist in the US?
in the US. So I'm so fortunate because of all like the artists that you named. Obviously, some of them were there prior to me joining the company, and some of them, came after I was there. But when you think of a band like Radiohead, I was a huge fan of theirs and still am. I had the pleasure and the privilege of working on three Radiohead albums. So I worked on A, Amnesiac, and Hail to the Thief.
Mm.
And Kid A came out right when I started there. When I say right when I started, it was, that week. So I wasn't there for all those pre-meetings. So I kind of just had to jump in. And I remember their product manager came running into my office and then in a super nice way, but like put the squeeze on. Yeah, he was like, "What are you gonna do? We have this video, we have this," and I'm like, "Okay." I was like anybody starting a new job, and also, again, like I worked in the satellite office, so there weren't that many of us there. The person that hired me was in LA. So it was a little nerve wracking. And also, I didn't want to screw it up because it's your job, so you don't want to screw it up. But I also didn't want Radiohead to hate me. As it turned out, they're a really unique band visually. The way they really get the word out and the way they get their music out and the way they engage with their fans is visual. So I felt a lot of it landed me because I don't know if you remember it, it wasn't just like a video in the traditional sense. It was, we have blips, we have this, we have that. You know what I mean? There was all these things. And normally you get a video and you get the video played in as many places as you can. But they were handing me a lot of content that they
Right.
wanted to get played. And it's super rare that I'd be like, okay, here's a video, and then I have all these blips, and then I have this content.
That's a
And then
dream for us to
right.
have all that
No, I
content.
know,
Yeah.
but it was really like I couldn't say to them, no problem. I can get all of that played. You had other artists you were programming. So,
Yeah.
and the expectation was that all of it would be played. So, and lucky for me, it kind of worked out with you guys because they put out really great content and we kind of hit it at the right time with these blips and things because TV2 was just really beginning to really, really factor in and have a big impact. So it was in all of those major markets and it had launched,
Was that
a couple of
was
years
that the
earlier.
album that did we do a listening event where there was a camera just looking down on a vinyl and the album just played and that was it? There was a Radiohead album that premiered that way. It was like a listening thing, but it was just looking down at a black and white video.
I don't think it was Kid A.
No, it wasn't. I know. I
I do remember
that.
that. Yeah.
It was
remember that.
Radiohead, I think.
It was. I think
Yes.
it might have been Amnesiac.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
But
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Oh my God, because we did listenings with you guys for Radiohead for sure because we
Right.
were
But this
using
was
everything
on
we
air
could.
and it was literally
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
the vinyl,
Yes,
the
yes,
black
yes,
and
yes,
white
yes.
video.
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. Oh my goodness. Yes. Oh my goodness. I completely forgot about that. Yes.
Was
Was
it Kid A?
no,
It was
couldn't have
not Kid
been.
A.
It
Okay.
couldn't have been because I would have had to set that up, and I got
Right.
there right when it was
Right.
right when Today was coming out. I think it was Amnesiac. That's
Gotcha.
or it could
But I
have been
will
some
tell you,
other like little thing that we were doing with them. I don't
yeah,
know.
I will
Something
tell you
interesting.
a Kid
Yes,
A
I
story
remember
for
that.
on the .com side. So, talking about the blips,
Mhm.
we took them all and
Yep.
created a Radiohead mini site or microsite
Yep.
within
Mhm.
MTV.com.
Mhm.
I wish I knew what the URL was to that to go find it. I don't know how anybody would find it today, but it was the coolest, and we
Yeah.
literally created a whole new site on MTV.com
No,
just for
yes, you
Radiohead.
did. No,
It was
thank you.
amazing, and I still have my plywood Kid A painting that they gave
Mhm.
everybody as part of promo for the
Mhm.
album, which is
Yep.
one of the few things that I will never part with, and it's just this little like plywood thing that has Kid A on it and a little painting.
Mhm.
Yeah,
It has a painting.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
they still innovate that way, and it's really smart. They come up with new and different things, and they really knew how to connect with their fans. Also, they challenged us, as a record company. They challenged us. They were one of the biggest bands in the world, really, but they did not take that mainstream route at all. Like they
Right.
were not
Right.
pop radio darlings or anything like that, nor did they want to be. And I think it was always good creative challenge because I mean, I
Yeah.
think everyone was always very excited when we heard that there was going to be a Radiohead album coming or a tour or something. Cause they just, they know how to mix it up.
You talk about them not doing like a lot of mainstream stuff, that they kind of forge their own path as far as their creativity for promotion and things like that. However, they did do an appearance on the MTV Beach House. They probably felt so awkward doing that. It was well before you were there. It was for
That
Creep.
was for Creep. Yeah, that was
Yeah,
that was 2 albums before I
yeah,
started
yeah,
working with
yeah.
them. I mean, the thing is that I always loved about the Beach House was that it was, spring break. We would go to like some great location, like hopefully, you know what I mean? I remember when, it was in, Mexico one year and I'm like, okay, well that's going to be fun, but there are a lot of artists that just are like, you know what? I was not made for fun in the sun. It's
Right,
like,
right.
it's like band like Radiohead being, well, that was like a magical booking to have them
Yeah.
on like the beach house or something because, I think that was the one and only time that was.
Moving on from one of the biggest British bands in the world to a
Mhm.
second biggest British band in the world.
Mhm.
You were there from the start of Coldplay, I believe, and
I
they
was.
just seem so down to earth. When I remember them coming into us at
Super young as
MTV.com,
well, right?
and
Super young.
yeah, and I mean, did you ever expect that they were going to blow up as big as they have become?
Oh, I think, and I've said this to people in the past. My very first day at Capitol was their first day. The person who hired me was in LA, so I walked in and I'm like, is someone going to show me? I have no idea where my office is or anything like that. There was like a lot of stuff in the office. I remember, like it wasn't like a totally cleaned out space. I mean, the desk was cleaned off and the drawers were emptied, but there were like, if I recall, I don't know why I'm remembering this. It just, I think that maybe there were some extra boxes in there. It was almost as if the office wasn't being used. Nobody had been hired yet, and like there was some extra stuff in there. So I would walk in and I sit down, and somebody came in. I don't think I'd been there for more than an hour. And I was just trying to collect my bearings and like go through, some stuff. I just remember somebody walking in and being like, "Are you the new video person?" And I was like, "Yes." And not that the person was rude. It was just like one of those things. It was like, "Here." And they literally gave me a VHS tape of Yellow. And I'm like, "Oh, okay." So I'm looking at this and I remember speaking to my boss and I said, "Is this one of our artists?" I wanted to make sure that I wasn't wrong. Like I was, like again, it was the EMI, space. So like Blue Note was there, other things. And he was like, "Yes, we are releasing Coldplay in the US." So I put the VHS tape, totally dating myself now, put the VHS tape in the player and I listen to this beautiful, beautiful song. I'm like, oh my God, I love this. If anyone says that they love all the music that they have to work, they'd be lying. Okay.
Right. Right.
It's the job and you really only hope that you enjoy the people because that's and enjoying the music, is huge bonus. But hearing this on my very first day, and this is amazing. Like, I love this. And the very first person I called, Holly Schumann, and she's a good friend. And I also was like, she's gonna love this, And I think she had been in England over the summer because when I told her about them, she said, "Oh, I know them." She's like, I love them." So she was a huge part of helping us to break them. As you know, they were like MTV2 darlings. It was such a pleasure that they were so well received. I often say to people that you're lucky if you get one, you know? It's like, yes, can I take credit for working on certain projects? But was I there from day one? Radiohead, yes, I was so lucky to work on 3 albums, but they were established to a point, when I met with them and when I first started working with them. But with Coldplay, you're lucky if you get one in your career that blows up that you were there with. I was riding around in a van with those guys for so long, and they had really just come to the US for the first time to work. I don't know if any of them had been here prior to that, but they were so polite and so enthusiastic and really, really, really such a pleasure.
So
So
yeah,
back to
so
the original question, am I surprised? I'm not surprised because they make really, really, really good music and they are the nicest people.
yeah, they're
They
awesome.
really are. You guys had a chance to, meet them and, many times.
On the .com side, I remember Brandon Schmidt introducing them to our team. And I believe it was in that first visit to New York, they were supposed to come in and do a performance with us, but Chris's voice wasn't good. And then because they were going to perform at Irving Plaza that night. And the audience, I think, finished the song for him. He's like, I'm so sorry, I can't sing.
I do. No, I remember. I do. I remember that his.
Like a year later at the gym, and he was there, Chris
was there? Uh-huh.
At the Equinox in the West Village.
Oh my goodness.
This is when he was dating Gwyneth.
Okay.
And, so I see him there and I said hello and he goes, "Hey, I remember you." And I was like, "Yeah, from MTV." He goes, "Hey, good man. How are you doing?" I was like, this is so amazing that like a year later, this guy who's now become one of the biggest stars in the world knows who I am. That was so awesome.
But that's why they have become such an enormous success. That was so long ago at this point, and look where they are, now, and it's because they are the most appreciative people I've ever met. Yeah. Totally humble. I have the most beautiful thank you note that they sent me. I actually have it framed because it was after their first appearance on the VMAs. They're appreciative and they remember names. They remember faces. They knew how to do it. They really, really did. But it was genuine. Like none of this was phony in any way. They treated us like family. I've always been treated like family by them. They're very, very, very good people.
There's a lot of content that's been coming up right now on my social feeds where I was probably before Yellow was released, and there's videos of Chris going, "We're going to be the biggest band in the world, trust me." Like they were so confident and they knew their sound and their lane. So I think that's kind of good to have early on too, and they were right.
They certainly had goals. But also they're, self-deprecating, they just knew how to do it right. So, I think, which makes us, which made all of us work harder, for them.
Right.
Because they were such a pleasure to work with.
That's awesome.
We are going to move on to what we call the quick fire round.
Oh my goodness, I don't know about the quick fires.
Yes, this is a surprise.
That's one thing we don't tell you. So
okay.
Just, a 30-second quiz. Here we go.
Okay. Hope I don't disappoint.
MTV VJs, Carson or Damien? Quick.
30 seconds.
All right.
Carson.
Beastie Boys, Carson. All right. Beastie Boys videos, Intergalactic or Make Some Noise?
Intergalactic, for sure.
And Pick My Ride or Cribs? Diane, you
Oh
weren't
my God,
prepared.
I'm not prepared, but that's like, I mean, that's like choosing between children, right?
Exactly.
Cribs.
I have a
Okay,
favorite.
Cribs. I'll say Cribs, but
All
I
right.
also really love Pimp My Ride because I thought that was a really, I thought that, that was, watching that show, I was like,
It depends on the
what are they?
artist.
It depends. Yeah, it just depends. But I mean,
Yeah,
there's that reveal element with Pimp My Ride, whereas Cribs, you're learning about an artist, but the Pimp My
yeah,
Ride is like what you were taking this and going to this. So it's like a makeover show.
exactly,
So there's
exactly. Yeah,
that reveal. So it's a little different for the brain.
Did you ever
gotcha.
have an artist on Cribs?
I know I did. If I remember, I will. I will.
So I think Dave Navarro was featured in the pilot episode, possibly.
Oh,
Well,
because he was with Carmen at the time, right?
He was with
yeah.
Carmen. Yeah, yeah. When I was working with
Yeah,
There
yeah,
was a
yeah,
lot
yeah,
going
yeah.
on
yeah.
with Carmen, and
Yes, I
Right,
was hanging
right.
out
Yeah,
with the two of them a lot. Yeah,
till
yeah.
yeah.
till death do us part. So maybe there was some
There
like
was some connection there because they ended up
outtake
doing that.
stuff
Right.
between some shows. Yeah. Talking about Beastie Boys, I remember the Make Some Noise video. There was so
Hmm.
many cameos in that video. It was amazing. A band that is influenced by different genres like punk and rock and hip hop and funk and jazz. What was it like working with them? And did you have to reintroduce them to a new generation as their sound
I,
matured in the 2000s?
here's the thing with them. Much like Radiohead, I came in to Capitol, and all of a sudden, I'm now working with another band that I absolutely love. And again, much like the guys from Coldplay, Beastie Boys. I mean, all three of them. I really have to say again, just good people. Couldn't be nicer, couldn't be friendlier. I really, really love them so much. And never had a problem taking the path with them because like a Radiohead, I mean, obviously sonically they're, completely different, but they were a band that challenged us. We're bringing you this record and we're not changing anything, we're not doing anything, nor should they. You are now being tested to take this to the next level. I mean, like, and obviously it's like the audience, especially the MTV audience, was, younger. Now you're playing to a younger audience, but I just find that, they don't lose fans. Everybody just takes that trip with them. And it was such a pleasure to come up with these, unique ways. That's what you had to do. I remember they did an appearance at the VMAs where they were presenting an award and they were like in costume, a $2 bill show with them in Vegas, which was so much fun.
Was it the
At
Hard
the Hard
Rock?
Rock. And do you remember like
Yeah.
that big suite at the Hard Rock with the bowling alley in it? It was enormous. And so I'm just like remembering like all of these fun things we did when we launched. I think it was To the Five Boroughs when we launched that. We taped something in the studio like that night. It was a primetime special that we were doing because we had to do something that nobody had done before. We weren't looking to slot them into platforms that existed for that release, But everybody at MTV was like, let's come up with something great. When they're like this quintessential New York band, and this was a love letter to New York, and studio was like wrapped with like the artwork for to
Oh.
the five boroughs. It was a while, it was so long ago, but like it was a special night.
This is one thing that Andrew has brought up many times before is that MTV was always willing to come up with something new if the artist was willing to do something new.
Hmm.
And they came up with some really amazing one-off events and programs and shows and opportunities that fit what the artist was and fit what the
Exactly.
record was and fit what the music was. And I mean, I think that almost a little bit lost today, that you can go to somebody and they'll create a one-off for you that is going to just showcase your artist in the best possible way.
The best possible way, because that's really that's what cements a true partnership. And I think anyone
Yep.
who was working with you guys and your team, you were my partners in this. So whatever you needed, I made sure to the best of my ability, hopefully you guys feel that this way, that I made sure that you got it. If you're going to play our videos and support our artists, it's not just the videos. It's all of the ancillary programming, it's the interviews, it's the takeovers, it's, all of the things that you do for an artist to suit that artist's comfort zone, because
Yeah,
some
it
artists
really,
are like, I'm not comfortable with this, and others are like, get me in front of the camera because
yeah,
that's the kind of artist I am. And others are like, well, this is how we created this album. And then it's like, okay, how are we going to present that visually and to the public? How are we going to get that essence out?
yeah,
Right.
So for artists that are, like Beastie Boys that are just so uber creative, that's the challenge also. It's like, don't go back to them with something that's not going to be worthy of this
Right.
present that they've presented to the label and to the world. They did a instrumental album. Do you guys remember this?
It
I
was
think,
later,
yeah,
right?
it was later.
vaguely.
It was after
Yeah,
To the Five Boroughs, and we did these listening sessions that we did at their studio, and the guys were all there. They were just like tooling around the studio, doing things, setting things up, saying hello. It was just like very gracious. It was like a two-pronged thing because it solved the problem of we don't want this album out because it was
Right.
back in the day where we don't want this leaking.
Right.
The solution wasn't let's keep it close to the vest and we're so precious. The solution was why don't we bring the people to us and we're going to be there to talk to them about it, to
Yep.
have this
Yep.
experience with them. So it wasn't like this situation where I had to be like, guys, I know that I have an album out, but you're not going to hear it until it's out, until it's been released. We just scheduled people to go downtown and go hear the album in their studios. And honestly, what's a bigger win than that? If
Well,
you're a Beastie
and
Boys
here's the
fan and you're hanging out in their
yeah.
studio listening to their new album, and then they come into the room, and that's where we did the interviews. It ended up working out.
I loved what I did on a day-to-day basis, but getting those opportunities to spend time with an artist and to talk to them about their creative vision and hear what they did. I
Mhm.
mean, that is so few people get to experience that, especially with a band like the Beastie Boys. It's an amazing,
Well, it's
uh,
experiential. It's
and I'm
experiential,
so
and that's
grateful that I had that experience too.
that's like that's what you also want. You want to create these experiential moments so that things come to life because it's living and breathing. They're saying, you know what? We spent this time making this. We put our heart and soul into this, and if you don't enjoy hearing it, then what's the point?
One of the artists that was there at the end of your time at Capitol,
Hmm.
who also kind of broke pretty big. I remember the song was I Kissed a Girl and I was working at
Hmm.
Logo. And so you brought her in and we did this video interview that was on our blog or something. And it was
Hmm.
before even MTV really
You
got on
100%.
board.
You were the very first person to do something within the MTV
Yeah.
family. You were.
And
Hmm.
then she exploded. What was that like?
Well,
Katy
let me
Perry we're talking about.
Yeah, yeah. Let me talk about Katie because I adore her. So this was after Capitol and Virgin had merged, but I had been at the company for so long, so it was an interesting time because I was now working with marketing staff and new R staff. So I really was getting to know all of these people and how they worked. I remember I was in the hallway and I heard Waking Up in Vegas. And I used this. I literally remember like it was almost like I'm just walking and then I'm like looking behind me, looking to my left, looking to my right. I'm thinking, I really hope that this is like a song that I'm going to be working. This is like Pat Benatar, like, hit me with your best shot. Like that. It was like that vibe that I got from waking up in Vegas. And it was so good. And I'm like, who is this? And they're like, Katy Perry. I'm like, who is that? And she had been in New York, like making the album, and I Kissed a Girl was actually put on the album last. So that wasn't on like
Really?
yes, that was not like she recorded it and then they were like, this is great. Like it was like the last song and radio jumped on it and things started moving. But I want to say this about Katie. So one of the other things that I always say, especially when working with a new artist, is that they have to be part of their story. They have to be part of their own success. We don't just get an album and get content and then just say, okay, guys, sit down. Let us just make our magic. We'll do our thing. I need you to be there because you're going to be the best person to talk about what you're doing,
Right.
who
Right.
you are. And I have rarely met anybody in life. When I met Katy Perry, she would come to the office because she was in New York recording and said, what do you do? Because she wanted to know what everybody did. Smart girl, right? Go in there and
Right.
make
Right.
friends
Right.
with everybody, because the more I know her, the better I'm going to be promoting her. And
Right.
she's also an incredibly visual artist. So she would just come and sit in my office, and she absolutely knew the kind of artist she wanted to be. She had a complete sort of visual of what she wanted to do, how she wanted to do it. She was absolutely fearless. I remember one night she was in my office and she said, what are you doing tonight? And I said, oh, I'm having dinner or drinks with some of my programmers, MTV VH1. And she said, can I come? And I was like, okay, and this is before anything. And I remember, when I was pitching her, I Kissed a Girl had just come out and it was taking its time on the charts. And as things do on a pop, and it hadn't exploded yet, but it was
Right.
like,
Right.
people knew it. There was stuff being written about it. And I remember trying to get her on TRL. And I remember saying, I promise you, she will not disappoint. Everybody's going to love her. She is a natural. She's completely authentic and she wants this. She's a hard worker. I was literally knocking on that TRL door like all the time. I'm like, I promise you, when she got on TRL, it was this great moment. She just represented something that was, again, so authentic. She was like her own stylist. She was doing everything like herself. And this was before her album came out, before anything. She was just working it at every single level.
Yeah.
She really, like, she would meet people, again, would remember names, remember what they did. She would say, I want to do that. And like, even if at that point it was like, we're not there yet, your album hasn't come out yet, she knew what she wanted to do. And she was just ready. She was really ready for it. And I remember she like came in one time and like we all went into the conference room and there she was with her acoustic guitar and she was just playing a few songs.
Yeah. Again, you talk about her meeting people and remembering them. Met her in 2008 when the album came out and she was doing the promo for it. 2011, California Dreams had come out and she was on tour for that. Go back. I was at Vivo at the time. Go backstage for a meet and greet. She looks at me and she goes, I know you. She goes, I've met you before. I go, yeah. At MTV many years ago. She goes, oh my God. She gives me a big hug. And I'm like, wow, I didn't expect any of this, which was awesome. I mean,
she has a huge heart and she's patient and she's kind. She treats her fans that way. She treats people with kindness. She really is.
That's nice to hear.
She's that girl.
You have a good theme of hardworking superstars, which is good. It's nice to have and nice to not take things for granted.
Not at all.
We had a lot of label execs that would like come into the conference room and really do some crazy stuff to get our attention. Like we were talking to Lisa DeLuca, and one of the videos they had a big post-it theme, so they came in literally head to toe with post-it notes and used to decorate the music lounge. Was there anything that you did to get the attention of us for a new artist?
That's a really good question. I remember we had like a song that we were working called Purple Stuff, and I just remember like sending so much purple stuff over. It was like everything purple, but it was, you know, from candy to soaps to everything. So like those kind of things. Like I know like for Coldplay we did these beautiful lithographs that we sent over. I hope you guys still have yours. Andrew, I don't know if you were there. It was for A Rush of Blood. That I think that's because they literally individualize and personalize each one. So they're numbered, and yours says to Perry, thank you. And they all signed it. So we did a lot of stuff like that maybe came in on the back end. But I will say this, that when I wasn't at Capitol at this time, at this point, I was actually at Interscope at this point. And it was when MTV2 launched. So MTV is coming out with another channel. And we sent over Nebuchadnezzar of champagne. So it was like the biggest bottle of champagne. It came up to my waist. It was enormous. This is an enormous celebration. Yeah. I don't even know how that gets poured out of the bottle.
Yeah. Coming with artists like Radiohead that, you know, came off a big album, and Beastie Boys, you probably didn't have to do much.
Well, we always wanted to do something like what we were talking about before. We wanted to personalize this, because the number one thing you can also say about you guys is like, there is no, oh yeah, it's going to get programmed and they're going to play it. It'll be number one most played. You don't take that for granted at all, ever.
One last question is about probably one of the biggest artists in the world coming to TRL. How did you get Paul McCartney on TRL? How did you convince him to go to TRL?
So, first of all, working with Paul McCartney, it's almost like you're walking on a cloud. Like it's like you're in a dream, you know? I'm like, do you really need me? Like, what, you know what I mean? Like, what can I do for you, you know, Sir Paul? But I mean, it was like heaven. He is where he is in life because he is kind and he has figured it out, because he is completely authentic and completely so smart and just so nice. And the thing is, it's like everybody wants him to do something, right? He can get told in a million directions. And, you know, obviously from the beginning that your time is going to be limited with him. He really wanted to connect with the kids. It's a huge audience to not connect with. And when he says he's going to do something, he just completely does it full force. There is no ego, no drama, nothing. You feel like you're having a historical moment, even if it's a personal historical moment. You're like, I cannot like catch a glimpse. Like, this is unbelievable. Like, you know, everybody just felt like that. So he's in the studio. And we did other things that day. Like it was like a TRL appearance, but there was like some other things that were something for news. And I'm sure people were sharing content and all of that throughout the building. But he's there, and literally every single person who worked in your building, C-suite down. Honestly, I have never seen that studio more packed with, you know, it was crazy. And I remember Elena was going to be the person that was with Paul the whole time from MTV. And I remember him looking, and he was like, Elena? And she was like, I guess. And he was like, I'm all yours. Like, he was just like, but again, it was like, He looked her in the face. He's like, Elena, what are we doing? What are we doing next? Show me where to go. He was just so kind and fun. It wasn't like, he wasn't, if he didn't have fun that day, nobody would have known. He killed it because he's Paul McCartney. But like, he
Right, right,
really,
right.
it was, it was just one of those, to me in my career, those like historical moments. Like getting to work with him was like a dream, but like really to do actual work with him and to have everybody around and to bring him to the MTV studio was just a special day for everybody, like for everybody who could be there. It was just a moment that you don't forget.
Do you remember Carson's reaction to meeting him on camera? What that was like? Because I can remember, I could just imagine Carson sort of like geeking out about meeting a Beatle.
There was so much getting him into the studio. He's shaking hands and kissing baby. You know what I mean? It's one of those things where like it was such a special, incredible moment. Everybody's running on adrenaline. And it's one of those things where it's like, did that just happen? When he left and he was done, everyone was kind of like, did we just meet Paul McCartney? Like, I think everyone kind of had that feeling. And it's almost like you remember it. And at the same time, you're like, did I forget it? It was just it was a special day.
You probably had like Tom Freston down there, and Judy McGrath, and Van. Everybody wanted to be down there.
That I remember, because I remember where we were all standing, and everyone being happy, because how could you not be? He's one of the few artists in the world of all time where you could really just say, like, you're in a room with greatness and like everybody, you couldn't not smile. I mean, he's been doing it most of his life, but it's truly an incredible.
Yeah.
I think it just comes a natural thing to him, and that's his personality. I remember when he was on Fallon, where they were going up and down the elevators and they would open up, and Fallon would just be with Paul McCartney, like playing table tennis or talking, and so
and then
he obviously likes those spur of the moment.
I'm with you can't help but think
it's a real
that.
moment.
You just can't help but think that. Yeah, it's really truly incredible. So.
Yeah.
We've got one last question for you. This is a feature that we're going to start doing moving forward on the rest of the podcast. What was or is your favorite music venue in New York City, and what was the best show you saw at that venue?
To me, it could be a venue where I happened to see one of my favorite bands, so it just made everything better. I can't say that venue is my favorite venue, but I went to see Cage the Elephant last night at MSG, and I saw them downstairs at Webster Hall. So this was like back in the day. To me, that made that whole experience, the venue, one of my favorite nights in New York.
I saw the Killers at Mercury Lounge.
Yeah. You know who I saw at Mercury Lounge? I saw Matchbox 20.
It's nice seeing these stadium artists do these small,
so I definitely have that. I do remember seeing, and this was a great show and a super hard ticket. I was not working at Capitol at the time, and it was Radiohead, and it was at Roseland, and it's one of those nights. Wow. I remember being there with Joanna Bomberg. I was lucky enough that somebody pulled me into that VIP area. You remember that area up top? That was a great old venue too. I love that venue. I love seeing a show there. But that was a really, really great show, and it was because I loved Radiohead so much.
That's what I'm saying. It was the whole experience.
Before I worked with them, it was years before I worked with them. That was I remember that night really, really well.
I'm going to save a lot more of my answers for other podcasts, Perry.
Yes, absolutely.
I'm not going to go into all of
Well, I will just sort of echo Roseland, RIP. And I had some great experiences with shows there also.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen everybody there.
That you do when you're, too big for one of the downtown venues, but yet you're not ready for either Radio City or MSG yet.
Yeah. You're like, you're
Yeah.
teetering, you're on the brink. And that, I think
Right.
that's probably why people really remember that venue and seeing shows there, probably because you really feel there, you feel that intimacy there. And but at
Exactly.
the same time, right. And you're like, wait, I saw them when, you know, before they exploded, which is always a great
I saw
thing.
30 Seconds to Mars there.
I was probably at that show. Maybe I've seen them. I've just seen them a bunch of times. But
Yeah.
But again, it's like with Coldplay. It's like my first show with them was Bowery Ballroom.
Right.
You know,
right.
so pick a big artist, and if you know, and if I work with them, then clearly, you know, they were probably. If I work with them as a developing art, I think they're just
for
a
us
lot
in
of great
the industry, you know. Say my favorite show is like, oh my God, it's hard to say.
Right.
Could say my top 50.
My top 50, right? It's like because you don't want to seem
not in any order,
right? You don't want to seem
exactly.
You don't want to seem jaded, but at the same time, that really was our job was to make sure
and we didn't.
We were there.
Another day in the office, as
exactly.
This was just another podcast.
Just another day in show business, guys.
Yeah.
You know how it is.
Well, we'll wrap this up by saying thank you, Diane, for taking the time to speak with us. We very much appreciate it. It was so good catching up with you and hearing all your stories. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me. It has honestly been so much fun. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today in the Music Lounge.
And tune in next week to hear more stories about your favorite era of MTV.